Good morning, students. So this is the summary lecture of chapter number 2, Sectors of the Indian Economy, class 10th, subject economics. So we have discussed all the topics from this chapter. Now in this particular lecture, we are going to recall all the topics that we have covered till now, and we are going to summarize the entire chapter. So if you have any queries in any topic and you are not able to understand any topic, we are going to discuss it again, and still you don't understand anything, you can ask me again in the comment section that ma'am, I am not able to understand that particular topic, that I will explain you in my further lectures. So this is going to be your summary lecture for chapter number 2, Sectors of the Indian Economy. So we are starting now. So first of all, we are going to talk about firstly about economy. So as you all know, the major thing that comes here is economy. We have studied in the chapter 1 also about development. So how development occurs in a particular country, it is because of the economy only. So what is basically economy? Economy is a framework. It's a particular framework in which all the economic activities that take place, and therefore it gives income in return. So all the activities we are doing, or your mother is doing, or father doing in outside of their comfort zone. So whatever they are doing for their livelihood or for something that can bring them income, that is an economic activity that they are doing in a particular framework which take place so that they can earn any income from it. So this is basically economy is all about, that you are doing certain economic activities which can generate certain income for you and for that particular institution as well. So that is an economy, and this economy is divided into certain sectors also. So what are these sectors that we are going to talk about in this chapter only? So now we are going to talk about the sectors of the Indian economy. So what are these economic activities that take place? So here is an example. So there are many activities that are taken by directly using natural resources. So the prime thing that is there in the economic activities are the natural resources that we take place, and from that we are utilizing in our further activities also. So many activities basically which start from taking up directly using these natural resources. For example, the cultivation of cotton. If you want a business of cotton, so firstly what you want that particular natural resource, cotton. If and it takes place within the crop season only. So from where you will get the cotton? From the farms only, and from where the farms will give you these particular crop or particular thing only in a particular season only. It is not going to occur every time. So it works only under some season only, and you have to wait for that season. Then the farmers will occur, they will pluck these cotton out, and it will go to these factories to manufacture it, and then it's going to transport it to the retailers and wholesaler shops, and then it is going to come to you. So it's a very big process. It's all these activities come under this economic activities only. So when we produce a good by exploiting these natural resources, it is an activity of a primary sector. So when you're producing a good by exploiting these natural resources that are around you, it is an activity of a primary sector. So all the producing activity, all the basically agriculture, mining and fishing activities, these activities are in the category of the primary sector, and this is because it forms the base. It is formed the base for all other products that are subsequently made. So this forms a base for all the other sectors, because primary is the only sector that can form a base for other products to manufacture it. So firstly you need the natural resources to be undertaken, so that it could be utilized in other materials or making certain things. So it is basically the base for all other products that we subsequently make. Since most of these natural products we get are from agriculture, dairy, fishing, forestry, this sector is also called agriculture and related sector. So because all these natural products were getting it from agriculture, dairy, fishing, forestry, etc., these things only, that's why this sector is also known as agriculture and related sector. So after the primary sector, after producing all these things, all these natural resources go to certain factories or certain manufacturing agencies so that they can make these products and utilize these products into make something good and utensil so that you can use that product. So basically it covers in the secondary sector. The secondary sector covers all the activities in which these natural products are changed into other forms and through ways of manufacturing that we associate with industrial activities. So the secondary sector covers all the activities of these natural products to change it into other forms through ways of manufacturing that we can associate with the industrial activities. So if you want to buy a biscuit, you are getting the biscuit from the retailer shop, but where they are getting from, where these biscuits are getting made. So they are getting made in a particular factory or particularly manufacturing companies so that it can come to you and you can have it. So basically all these steps that cover after the primary sector, the making sector, basically where it all have been manufactured, or the making sector, we can say that it is coming under the secondary sector. Now this secondary sector gradually became associated with the different kinds of industry that came up. It is called the industrial sector. Now they have made all these products, but how you are going to buy it, from where you are going to buy it, and if you are going to buy from a shop, from where they are getting all these products. So this comes under the industrial sector, from where these manufacturing companies transport all the products to these wholesaler markets and to the retailer markets. So there comes this industrial sector. After this primary and secondary sector, there is a third category of activities that fall under the tertiary sector, and it is different from the above two. So it is quite different from primary and secondary sector. How? Because these are the activities that help in the development of the primary and the secondary sector. So it is basically helping to develop primary and secondary sector. So if all these products they have made, they have produced, but it is not going to give them income, they are not going to transport it only from one place to another, how they are going to generate income for themselves. So basically it helps to develop the primary and secondary sector. So if there will be more demand of the products, there will be more production of these products, and then the income will generate more and more for them. So there basically the development of primary and secondary sector depend on the tertiary sector only. So the transport, storage, communication, banking, trade are some of the examples of this tertiary sector. So since these activities generate services rather than goods, this tertiary sector is also known as the service sector. So basically this tertiary sector is giving them some major services like transport, storage, communication, banking, trade. So it is basically generating services and it is not basically meaning of goods. So the tertiary sector is also known as the service sector. Now this classification of Indian economic sector is divided into three categories. So the Indian economy can be classified into various sectors on the basis of its ownership, working condition of the workers, and the nature of the activity being performed. So it is being classified in three categories. Firstly, on the basis of the nature of activity of Indian economy, which is classified into primary, secondary and tertiary sector. What is the nature of the activity they are doing? Then on the basis of working condition. So on what conditions they are working in, so that is classified into organized and unorganized sectors. And on the basis of ownership, is that company is being owned by government or by their own. So that the ownership of an Indian economy can be classified into public and private sector. So this is the classification of Indian economic sectors into three categories: on the nature of activity of Indian economy, on the basis of working condition, and on the basis of ownership. So the economics activities have been calculated. Now we are going to compare the three sectors. So basically we are going to cover the nature of the Indian economy, and we are going to compare the three sectors: primary, secondary and tertiary sector here. So as you all know, the various production activities take place in primary sector only. Then it comes to secondary and tertiary sector to produce a large number of goods and services. So basically start from the primary sector only, and if we calculated in the past 40-year record, the major income and the major employment that have been held at that time was from the primary sector only. Most of the people were employed in the primary sector, and after that tertiary sector was also important. The secondary sector was not much included in these two categories. It was not even a part of it at that time. So also, if we think about these three sectors, the development has been taken place from the primary to tertiary in a major way. The shift that has been taken place. So also the three sectors have a large number of people working in them to produce these goods and services. And then in all these three categories, all these three sectors, there are large number of people who are working with them to produce the goods and services. There is one precaution one has to take: not every good that is produced and sold also need to be counted. So if we compare these sector, it is not included the one precaution that they take, that every good they are producing and sold, it is not to be included in the main GDPA. And if they calculating the GDPA, they are not calculating how much products they are making or how much things they are getting sold. They are just calculating the value of the final goods and services in each sector that have been produced. So it makes sense only to the final goods and services. So for example, here a farmer who sells wheat to a flour mill for 8 rupees per kg, and the mill grind the wheat and sells the flour to a biscuit company for rupees 10 per kg. So here in the primary sector is producing it, and he is giving it to a mill grind. To the secondary sector, he is producing it 8 per kg and he sells to it 8 per kg, and the mill grind the wheat and sell flour, he has given to the biscuit company at 10 per kg. The intermediate goods are used up in producing final goods and services, and the value of the final goods that are used in making the final goods. So basically the last amount, that on which amount it has been sold to the consumer, the value of the final goods and services that have been given to the consumers or to other companies, that is only being calculated in the GDPA, not any other thing, not even the how much amount they have produced or on what rate they have given. You just have to calculate the final good and service that they have produced, the final amount of all the goods and services they have produced. So that's the only thing we have to calculate it in the GDPA. The value of final goods and services produced in each sector during a particular year, which provides the total production of the sector for that particular year. So the value of the final goods and services that are produced in each sector during a particular year provides the total production of the sector of that particular year. And the sum of the production in these three sectors are calculated, and it gives us the gross domestic product of that particular country. So GDPA, after summing up all the production of all these three categories, three sectors that we have calculated, it gives us the total GDPA of the country, and it is the value of all final goods and services produced within a country during a particular year. So GDPA shows how big the economy is. So basically what is a GDPA here? I just want to let you know about the GDPA. The value of final goods and services that are produced in each sector during a particular year provided provides the total production of the sector for that year, and the sum of production in the three sectors gives the gross domestic product of a country. So GDP shows how big the economy is of that particular country. So we calculated in a chart of a world where our GDP stands, where our economy stands. It is calculated like that only. So now we are going to talk about the primary, secondary and tertiary sectors in India. So how the shift has been keen in India about this primary to the tertiary sector, it has also happened. So over the 40 year between 1971 to 72 till 2011 and 12, this production of all three sectors has increased, and it has increased the most in the tertiary sector. So from the past 40 years, if we calculated the major shift that has came in these three sectors, it has mostly been increased in the tertiary sector only. And as a result, in the year 2011 and 12, the tertiary sector has emerged as the largest producing sector in India and replaced the primary sector. So before in 1971 and 72, the major largest producing sector of that time was the primary sector, where all the employment, all the things that take place in the primary sector only, and it was not measured in the secondary and tertiary sector. So the largest one was there in the primary sector only. But the shift that has been came from 1971 to 72, from 2011 and 12, it is now have been replaced by the tertiary sector. So there could be several reasons why this tertiary sector became an important in India. Why there was a shift that came from the primary to the tertiary sector. What were the reasons? So the reasons, and we are going to discuss here, are: first, in any country, there are several services such as hospitals, educational institutions, post and telegraph services, etc. are required. So in every country, there are several services that are there, basically of medical thing. Hospitals should be there, education institutions are needed, post and telegraph services are needed. So they are required in each country, and these can be considered as the basic services. These all services are considered as basic services. In a developing country, the government has to take responsibility for the provision of these services only, because they come under major things, major service, basic services that every people need. So the government take certain provisions also for these services, and they take responsibility to provide more and more services to the people. Then second, the development of agriculture and industry leads to the development of services such as transport, trade, storage, and like, as we have already seen. So the second thing, the development of the agriculture industry, they all depend on the development of these services only: transport, trade, storage, etc. So if the demand of all these things will increase, same time the demand for all the production of these agriculture and industry sector will also increase. So if the consumer are demanding more, their producing sector will also increase their production accordingly. So they work in vice versa. If the demand will be not there, they will not produce that much of amount, and if the demand will be there, they are going to produce more amount of products. Third, as income level rises, certain sections of people start demanding many more services like eating out, tourism, shopping, private hospital, private school, etc. So thirdly, as the income of many people rises, so they were earning 30,000, now they are earning 60,000. So if the economy is increasing, the level of salary they are getting, the level of income they are getting is increasing. There are certain sections that their demand also increasing in more services. They want more service now, like they want to eat out in restaurants. Now they want to go for some tourism. They want to travel around. They want to shop. clothes and other things from malls, and malls are basically there. Then they want private hospitals, they want good facilities, and for education sector also they want private school to provide them better education every time they get. So because of the generation of income level rises, their demand for all these services also rises. Eating out, tourism, shopping, private school, private hospital, etc. Fourth, over the past decade or so, certain new services such as those based on information and communication technology have become important and essential. So now everyone depend on information and communication technology only. They want mobile phone, they want laptop, they want internet, they want certain new games, certain new software to work their things out. So basically these certain new services are the main thing that are going on currently, and they base this service sector more now. So they want it is quite important and essential in the current generation. Then there was a remarkable fact about India is that while there has been a change in the share of these three sectors of the GDP, a similar shift has not taken place in employment. As you all know that there was a remarkable shift that came from the primary to the tertiary sector. But when we think about the chart about the employment sector, it is not changed till now. Most of the people are working in the primary sector only, and the tertiary sector are having some limited seats, and people are working in a limited number only there. So till now it is not being shifted. The change in the share of these sectors in GDP, a similar shift has not been taken place in the employment sector. The primary sector continues to be the largest employer ever now. Till now, if we want to say that the primary sector continues to be the largest employer ever now. In the tertiary sector also, it is not developed till now for the employment sector. So more than half of the workers in the country are working in the primary sector, mainly in agriculture, producing only a quarter of the GDP. So if major people are working in the primary sector, they will earn to some limited number only, and it will restrict in the progress of the GDP, because the largest production sector is tertiary, but still many of the people who are getting employed are in the primary sector. So there is a hindrance, there will be certain things that will not develop the GDP because of these things. The secondary and the tertiary sector produce 3/4 of the produce, whereas they develop less than half of the people. So the secondary and tertiary sector produce 3/4 of the produce, where they employ less than half of the people. So in the tertiary and secondary sector, they have certainly limited seats where they want skilled and educated person. So because of that limitations that I have given in their own sectors, that's why the people who are not employed, they have to go to the primary sector to earn some livelihood. So it means that there are more people in the agriculture than it is necessary. So if we think about that, there are more people in the agriculture sector than it is necessary. So even if you move a few people out from that particular sector, the production will not be affected. If we are taking certain people from the primary sector, that sector is not going to be affected at all, because it is being overpopulated, because there is no job for them in the other two sectors. So in other words, the workers in the agriculture sectors are underemployed. The underemployment is hidden in the contrast to someone who does not have a job, and it is clearly visible as unemployed. So because of this, underdevelopment is hidden from all these things. It is a contrast to someone who does not have a job and clearly visible as unemployed. Hence, it is also called disguised unemployment. We see that other peoples of the service sector on the street pushing a cart or selling something, where they may spend the whole day but earn very little. So as you have all seen, they are sabji walas that you have seen. They are traveling from morning till the night, and they are sometimes they are getting good money, sometimes they are not getting good money, they are earning a little. So they are doing this work because they do not have better opportunities, because they are doing these job because they are not getting proper opportunities, which which is because of this illiteracy maybe, or the limitations that have been set in these tertiary and secondary sector. They have to work like this to earn some income. Now the evolution of the economy from the primary sector, and we have just talked about this. Now how you can create employment, how all apart from these sectors, how you can create employment amongst people. So a way by which we have tackled these problems is to identify first and promote and locate industries, and a large number of people may be employed. So to tackle such problems of employment, we need to identify the area where there is large number of people who are unemployed. Then we need to promote and locate these industries in such places so that a large number of people can be employed while in the construction business, or by making these buildings, or taking them into certain jobs so that they can be employed. So a study conducted by the Planning Commission estimates that nearly 20 lakh jobs can be created in an education sector alone. So there was a survey that had been conducted by the Planning Commission, estimates that nearly 20 lakh jobs can be created in the education sector only. So, and every state or region has the potential for increasing the income and employment for people in that area. And every state and region, they have certain potential to increase the income also, and in the employment sector also for the people in that area. The same study by the Planning Commission say that if tourism as a sector is improved, every year we can give additional employment to more than 5 lakh people. So there is one more thing that is being increasing nowadays, that is tourism. So if we improve this tourism sector, every year we can generate an additional employment more than 5 lakh people. And we must realize that some of the suggestions that have been discussed above would take a long time to implement. So basically all these changes that we want to occur in our to improve our economy, it is going to take a long time to implement, because there are certain rules that we need to follow. The government need to make certain implementations. So for that they have made certain schemes also. To recognize this, the central government in India made a law implementing the right to work. So they have implemented one law so that the people out there could be employed and could get some sort of income for their living. So there was Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act 2005, and under this act, all those who are able to and are in need of work are guaranteed for 100 days of employment in a year by the government. And if the government fails in its duty to provide employment, it will give unemployment allowance to the people. So basically what does it say is, it is being started by the central government, and under this all the people who want able to do some certain work and are in need of certain work, their work are guaranteed for 100 days of employment in a year by the government. And if they fail to provide that to these people, they are going to give them unemployment allowance to have some sort of income so that they can fulfill their needs. So this type of work that would in future help them to increase the production from land will be given preference under this act. Now the division of these sectors as organized and unorganized sectors. So the organized sector covers those enterprises or places of work where the terms of employment are regular and therefore people have assured work. So in the now the work has been The division of this sector is divided into organized and unorganized sectors. So in the organized sector, it covers all the enterprises and place of work where there is term of employment that has been given to them and which is on some regular basis, and therefore people are assumed work, and it is called the organized because it has some formal processes and procedures. So they are following certain rules and regulations, terms and conditions of that particular institution or particular company that they are following. So they are following certain formal processes and procedures. And in an unorganized sector, it is categorized by small and chartered units which are largely outside the control of the government. Jobs here are low paid and often not regular, and employment is not sure, and this sector includes a large number of people who are employed on their own, doing small jobs such as selling on the street and doing repair work. So basically what these two sectors are talking about here, the sectors which carries out all the activity through a system. So in an organized sector, all the activities which are done through a system and followed by certain laws of the land is called organized sector here. So it is going to be followed by certain system and by certain laws, and moreover labor's rights are given to them due to respect and wages and are as per the norms of the country and those of the industry also. And labor working in an organized sector, they are getting certain benefits or like social security net as framed by the government, and certain benefits like provident fund, leave entitlement, medical benefits, assurance are provided to these workers in an organized sector. And these securities provisions are necessary to provide source of sustainability in case of disability or death, and in the main who is main worker in that particular family who can work in case the person is dead. Otherwise the dependency will be faced in bleak future. And in an unorganized sector, the sector which evade most of the laws and they don't follow certain system, come under the unorganized sector. There are in these particular sector there are some small shopkeepers, some small scale manufacturing units keep all their attention on profit and making and ignore their workers' basic rights, and workers don't get adequate salary here, and the other benefits like leave, health benefits and insurance are beyond the imagination of people working in an unorganized sector. For example, people working in the domestic helpers are there, the maids that are working, and the workers of some local grocery shops. So all these people come under the unorganized sector. Now how you can protect the workers in the unorganized sector? So the organized sector offer jobs that are the most sought after. In the organized sector, the jobs that they are getting with some assurance of job security, and it is also common to find many organized sectors enterprises in the unorganized sector also. Since in the 1990s, it is also common to see a large number of workers losing their jobs in the organized sector, and in the rural areas the unorganized sector mostly comprises of landless agricultural laborers, small and marginal farmers, sharecrops and artisans. So we cannot say that the job that has been guaranteed to the organized sector, it is being fixed and they cannot be thrown out of the company, since it was there in 1990s when there was a Great Depression and the economy has gone to such a low level that the large number of workers have lost their jobs in the unorganized sector. And in the rural area also, most of the people got landless, and the agricultural laborers, they were small marginal farmers, sharecroppers and artisans, they have lost their job and they were not able to get any sort of income from anything. So nearly 80% of rural households in India are in small and marginal farmer category. So if we talk about the people who are there in the rural areas, 80% of these rural households are in India are in the small and marginal farmer category, and in the urban areas, unorganized sector comprises mainly of workers in the small scale industry, casual workers in the construction, trade and transport, etc. And those who work as street vendors, head load workers and garment makers, rag pickers, etc. So in the two categories, in the rural areas and urban areas, in the rural areas, many people are only in the small and marginal farmer categories, and in urban areas, these unorganized sectors are there in these industries, casual workers as constructions, trade and transport, and they work as street vendors, head load workers, garment makers, etc. Now sectors in terms of their ownership, public and private sectors. So in the public sectors, the government own most of the assets and provide all the service. So when we categorize in terms of ownership, there are two categories, public and private sectors. And in the public sector, the government owns most of the assets and it is being provided by the government only about all the financial things that is given to these sectors, all the services that have been given, all the funds that have been raised from the government only. And in the private sector, the ownership of assets and delivery of services is in the hands of the private individuals or companies. So in the private sector, it is the opposite of the public sector. The ownership of all the assets and delivery of the services in the hand of the private individual who is the owner of the company or the members of that particular company. And the activities in the primary sector are guided by the motive to earn profit. So all the activities that are held in the private sector, they have only one motive, which is to earn profit from all the assets they are selling it out. And the purpose of the public sector is not just to earn profit. The purpose of the public sector is not to earn profit. They want to provide them as much service as they can, because the government have to raise money through taxes and other ways to meet expenses on the services rendered by it. So they want to develop the country, they want to raise the money through some certain taxes and other ways to meet expenses on the services rendered by them, to the construction of these roads, highways, schools and hospitals. So they are in building taxes so that they can get to meet the expenses of all the services they are renting on. And there are several things that have been needed by the society as a whole, but which the private sector will not provide at a reasonable cost. So there are certain services that is when needed by the society, that like this government hospitals, government schools, there are certain government institutions are set up there. But if we compare it with the private sector, they have certain high cost and most of the people can't afford it. So they have to create these things so that many of the people can get the things which the private sector will not provide them at a reasonable cost. Collecting the money from thousands of people who use these facilities is not easy, and collecting the money from these thousands of people who use these facilities is not at all easy. Even if they provide these things, they would charge a high rate of their own services. So if they want certain things, certain services, the private sector is going to charge a high rate on their services. So thus, because the government has to undertake such heavy spending and ensure that these facilities are available for everyone. So the government is the one who undertake all these heavy spendings to ensure that the facilities is being given to and available to each and every one in the particular country. And there are some of these activities which the government has to support also. So there are major activities that the government has to support also. These private sectors may not continue their production or business unless the government ensures it, and the government has to bear part of the cost, because there are a large number of activities which are in the primary responsibility of the government, and the government must spend on these. Providing health and education facilities for all is one example. The government also need to pay attention to the aspects of human development. It is also the duty of the government to take care of the poorest and most ignorant regions of the country through increased spending in such areas. So government has such a certain major responsibility of the entire country or certain regions, certain facilities which is should be given to each and every member. So they are ensuring all these things to develop the entire country. So this is whole as a chapter we have discussed till now. If you still are not able to understand any topic, you can ask me in the student query section. Now the homework solution that I have given you in the previous lecture. So the first question that I have been given you about the exercise question, filling the blanks. So the answer is here. First is about the employment in the service sector has not increased to the same extent as production. Workers in the tertiary sector do not produce goods. Most of the workers in the organized sector enjoy job security. A large proportion of laborers in India are working in the unorganized sector. Cotton is a national product and cloth is a manufactured product, and the activities in primary, secondary, tertiary sector are interdependent. So this question you have to do in your book only. You don't have to do it anywhere else. Question number 2 also, and 3, 4, 5 or till 5 you have to do it in your book only. Question number 2, A part, the correct answer is number 3. The sectors are classified into public and private sector on the basis of ownership of enterprises. B, production of a community and mostly through a natural process is an activity in primary sector. GDP is the total value of all final goods and services produced during a particular year. In terms of GDP, the share of tertiary sector in 2011-12 is between 50 to 60%. Now answer number 4. You have to find the odd one out and say what. So basically in the first one it is tourist guide. He is appointed by the government, while Dhobi, tailor and potter belong to the private sector. Second, vegetable vendor, because he is the only profession. His is the only profession that does not require a formal education. Third, cobbler, the rest are workers in the public sector, while his profession is part of the private sector. Fourth is Sahara Airlines, it is a private enterprise, while the rest are government undertakings. Answer number 5, in office and factories registered with the government organized. It is organized in 15 members and own shops, office, clinics and marketplaces with formal licenses. It is organized. People working on the street, construction workers, domestic workers, unorganized, and workers in small workshops usually not registered with the government, unorganized, with 50% of working people. Now answer number 6. Do you think the classification of economic activities into primary, secondary and tertiary is useful? Explain how. So the classification of economic activity into primary, secondary and tertiary is useful on account of the information it provides on how and where the people of the country are employed. Also this helps in uncertainty as in which sector of economic activity contributes more or less to the country's GDP and per capita income. If the tertiary sector is developing much faster than the primary sector, then it implies that agriculture is depleting and the government must take measures to rectify this. The knowledge that the agriculture profession is becoming unpopular or regressive can only come if we know which sector it belongs to. Hence it is necessary to classify economic activities into these 3 basic sectors for smooth economic administration and development. So this you have to do in your main notebook. Answer number 7. For each of the sectors that we came across in this chapter, why should one focus on employment and GDP? Could there be other issues which would be explained, discussed? So for each of the sector that we came across in this chapter, one should focus on employment and GDP because these determine the size of the country's economy, and focus on employment and GDP has to determine the 2 important things. per capita income and productivity. Hence, in each of these three sectors, employment rate and status as well as its contribution to the GDP helps us understand how that particular sector is functioning and what needs to be done to initiate further growth in it. And answer number 8, you have to do your own, you don't have to do that in your notebook. So the homework that I want to give you in this is, please read the chapter carefully and try to solve the NCERT exercise question and mail me on my email ID. So please firstly do it in a rough. I will assure you about the answers in my next lecture. Do from question number 9 till 15, and the solution I will give you in the website only. So whatever the solution I am giving you, have to write only those solution in your main notebook. Till then you can try it out in your rough notebooks, and you have please mail me with your name, class and roll number. Please don't send your homework without mentioning these details, because I need to make certain list if you are sending me the homework or not, with your name and your class, roll number, etc. Things should be mentioned in it. So thank you students for, and if you have any queries, please ask me in the student inquiry section. Thank you.